The Formula One season is in full swing, and although some of the drivers have some serious deals with watch brands, what they wear off the track might surprise you. With me today, I have Formula One's #1 driver, Lewis Hamilton. Actually, Formula One's #1 fan, Roman Sharf. Roman, how's it going this morning?
It's going wonderful. I am a Formula One fan, a recent one actually.
Same.
And I fell into the sport when we got a box. Well, actually, Adam from Mentor Watches got a box at F1 Miami when it debuted last year. I went to the racetrack. I was lucky enough to go with some people that understood the sport, explained it to me fairly quickly. Then, of course, I watched Drive to Survive on Netflix, and I caught the bug. Good. And bought an F1 car. But
yeah, that's where I am right now. I'm watching Drive to Survive, and it's just amazing. Like, I'm addicted.
Are you watching the season now or no?
No, I'm still in season 2.
No, I'm talking about the actual current F1 season.
No, I'm not.
So wait till you finish Drive to Survive, because I'm sure you're binging through it, and then go back and start watching this season from the first race.
That's what I want to do. And
we're only one race in. Well, this weekend is the second race, so you're not too far behind.
Yeah, I saw like a Twitter post about some of the rankings, and I'm like, oh shit, who is this guy? Why is this guy on this team?
Don't.
I know it's messing up my entire experience.
A lot of things have changed in the last. A lot of things change year to year in terms of drivers, sometimes teams. So just don't watch.
I'm very excited for it. And obviously we have Miami coming up soon, so that's going to be super cool. I don't know if you want to talk about the fact that we're throwing an F1 event.
Well, it is a private event.
It is a private event.
We're not announcing it to the public, but we made a decision that, hey, look, why not get 100 to 200 of our clients in a room together? Because I think that the watch sport, not the F1 sport, is also something that can bring a lot of people together, and our clients come from all walks of life and locations. A lot of them are flying in from overseas for this event, and it'd just be great to have them in the room. Obviously bring some badass watches, have people try stuff on that never normally would or have never seen. Yep. But for the most part, it's just going to be 200 collectors mingling with each other, and a safe environment to actually show off and flex your watches and what you're into.
And it just so happens to be on F1 weekend.
And it just so happens to be F1 weekend.
A lot of these people are going to be there anyway, which is why we decided to do that. Let's get into our first driver and what he has been, I guess, caught wearing off the track. First guy we're going to talk about is Charles Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc.
Drive to Survive.
Yeah. A.K.A. Charles Leclerc. So Charles drives for Ferrari. Ferrari has an exclusive deal with Richard Mille. They are a sponsor. But he has been recently caught gold-handed wearing a gold Patek Philippe 5990.
So it's funny. These drivers that sign up, and I'm sure we're going to get into all the other sponsorships, so not to give up the rest of the episode, but these drivers, they get locked into a contract where they must wear a particular watch brand at any given time at all times, and they're actually not allowed to wear. Now, I'm not going to mention any names. I do have professional drivers that are our clients, and oftentimes, I hear things from them like, well, shit, I have to wear this, but I'm not really a fan because I'm a vintage guy, or I'm a big Rolex guy, or I'm a big XYZ guy, and it's really an issue, because if you think about it, these guys, they make some dough, right? And they tend to spend it on certain things, and a lot of those things usually come down to watches, obviously cars for that matter, which, by the way, they only drive Ferraris as well, which is not so bad.
It's not so bad. Same thing with Richard Mille. It's not so bad to only have to wear them.
It's not so bad, but think about it this way. Here you are, you have a passion for watches, and most of these guys do, because cars and watches go hand in hand. And you have a racing machine on a wrist. Meanwhile, you're driving the ultimate racing machine that doesn't get any better than that, unless you jump into a space shuttle. I can't think of anything else. But you're limited. And what is the one thing that any human being, regardless of his financial status, want? They want something they can't have, and I think it's the same concept. And do I blame him for wearing a 5990 rose gold? It's a gorgeous watch. It's one of the most popular, hottest, latest releases from Rolex. I mean, we'll see what Watches and Wonders brings, but hey, that's a beautiful, beautiful watch. And he's not somebody that bought it in the secondary market and paid stupid monies for it. Odds are, he walked into a boutique and they just gave it and said, hey, please just put it on. You know what I mean?
We just need one picture with it.
One picture.
Yeah. So I understand, to feel that limitation, you're telling me I can't wear any other watch. Now, yes, although you are given the number, or I don't know about number one, because everybody has subjective feelings about every brand, but Richard Mille is, way up there. It's a very respectable brand.
Wait till we get to Red Bull.
Yeah, so it's a very respectable brand. and they're telling you that's all you get to wear for the rest of your life, or at least as long as you are with this team, it feels like, you know, sometimes you just want to rebel. You want to wear something different.
What I don't know is whether or not this is a contract on a team level or a contract on a personal level. That's one thing I do not know, meaning that is this a contract between Charles Leclerc and Richard Mille, or is this a contract between Richard Mille and Ferrari, Team Ferrari, and at the same token, them being as a drivers, they have to abide by the rules.
We don't know the limitations of this, obviously. Obviously, given the fact that, you know, that they are sponsors, and I'm sure he has access to all of their products at any time that he wants, and I'm sure he either doesn't pay for it at all or pays minimal for it, and retail price at least. He's also
doesn't pay anything for
probably
it.
Not. Yeah, he's also been seen wearing the most obvious choice for him, which is an RM6702 Charles Leclerc. Like, that just makes sense. Like, why would you ever take that off? I'm not really sure. It's a gorgeous watch, beautiful timepiece. During his vacation, summer 22, in his hometown, he was spotted wearing the 3503 with the new butterfly rotor. That is an amazing watch. So he was in the water. There's a picture of him in the water behind a yacht, and he's got this watch on. It's just stunning. Obviously, he's a good-looking guy. The watch looks good on him. The water is amazing. The yacht's amazing. The whole scene is just perfect.
Are you falling in love? You're watching too much Drive to Survive.
I am, yes. Some of the other RMs that he's been spotted wearing, you know, wore 6101, the Ultimate Edition, limited to 150 pieces worldwide. Super expensive watches. I mean, these are, you know, $1 million watches. The fact that he went off course once, and pardon the pun, and got caught in a Patek Philippe, I don't think it's a bad watch to get caught in, you know.
Again, in my eyes, no. In your eyes, no. In the eyes of Richard Mille,
it might be.
I don't know what that sponsorships cost. The fact that pretty much the entire team is outfitted with Richard Mille's. You can see guys in the pit stops wearing Richard Mille's. You can see, obviously, the team managers, and you see a lot of the staff. So at any given time, there's got to be, I don't know, 100 Richard Mille's out, you know, at the team at any given time, considering the few that the drivers have, the team principals, and so on and so forth. Actual hard cost to Richard Mille is nothing.
Yeah.
The cost is in paying for that sponsorship. But the potential money is left on the table between 100 Richard Mille's. Even if they just sold them at the boutique, we're talking about millions of dollars. But I think that I'm pretty sure they took that into account when they were doing the sponsorship. It's funny. I remember me and you, we discussed last year when I caught the F1 bug. I came to him like, hey, can we find out, like, maybe put a little Luxury Bazaar sticker on one of the cars? And you were like, you an idiot. And I'm like, well, how much can it be? You know, 500,000? It's like, how about millions?
Yeah, it's you know, I do want the one behind the wheel. I want when that camera is facing me.
Oh, is that the one you want? Oh, okay,
yeah.
Great.
We'll get there one day. Number 2 on my list is Pierre Gasly. So the Red Bull teams have a sponsorship with Tag Heuer. And I'm not sure if they have any other sponsorships, but that's the one that, you know, stands out the most. Although Pierre Gasly has mostly been seen wearing Hublots, numerous different Hublots.
Well, Pierre Gasly is with AlphaTauri, which is the second Red Bull team.
It is still, you know.
And again, Red Bull has a contract with Tag Heuer, and oftentimes they're made fun of. You know, they are, you know, the #1 team, and, you know, ripping through second year in a row, and it looks like they picked up right where they left off with Verstappen picking up a win, first race out by far. Might add, and it's like I feel like Verstappen or Chico Perez will come out and look in the crowd of oftentimes Ferraris on the podium with them, like at least last year. Well, I don't want to, you still don't know what happened last year, but I'm going to have to give you some spoilers here. So, you know, oftentimes you found, Red Bull and Ferrari on the podium throughout the races last year. And it's like, I almost feel like I watched Verstappen and I watched Chico Perez, and they come out there with their cool $3,000 Tag Heuers, and they kind of, you know, peek over and they see Ferrari wearing like $500,000 Richard Mille's. But I don't think it matters to these guys. These guys look at the fact that they wear Puma footwear, right? Yeah. The fact that they wear, the fact that, you know, outside of watches, there are tons of other sponsors. To these guys, it's like second nature. Hey, this is what I get paid to do. I have to put on this hat.
Yeah.
I have to carry the Red Bull, water bottle, which I don't think there's Red Bull in there. I think it's actually water. But it's just like second nature.
Yeah, every press conference he is wearing a tag. Like, Tag has been involved in F1, you know, forever. So it's still a respectable name to be sponsored by. I'm Absolutely. Sure they pay a good amount of money for this.
Avi, if a watch brand came to us tomorrow, a brand like Nixon, which is now owned by Adidas, actually, if a brand like Nixon, which is a micro brand, nothing special, $50, $100 watches, if they came to me or you and said, look, Roman, here's a sponsorship, you have a lot of eyes on you, wear this watch, and we're going to pay you $10 million a year.
Sold.
I would have one around my neck. Yep. I would have one around my one wrist, my other wrist. But again, for them, they already get paid so much that to them, I feel like it's just part of their uniform. It's the same as putting on that hat. They just have to remember that the watch is seen after the race is done. They have to remember that the hat comes on, the Red Bull bottle gets grabbed. It becomes mechanics. Now, from a watch guy's perspective, I would love to see the champion wear champion watches.
Of course.
No, there's no Patek Philippe's.
There are no
in terms of sponsorships, right? But if you think about it, the watches are very well aligned with the sport itself. A lot of sports watches.
Think about this: Hublot is a sponsor of certain teams, not Red Bull, or at least not the significant one. Tag Heuer is the leading sponsor of Red Bull, but Pierre Gasly has made the choice to personally, on his own time, off the track, wear Hublots. Last he's been seen in a Hublot Bing Bang Unico with diamonds. Again, it's a pretty significant watch, and that's a choice that he's made. He's not sponsored by them.
I don't know if that's a choice.
But he's not sponsored by Hublot himself. He's not an ambassador.
Well, here's the thing. We don't know that. If you constantly see him wearing Hublots off the track, if he's made to wear... First of all, I don't know if the contract from Tag Heuer spreads over to...
We don't know that.
We don't know that. Let's say even if it does, it's all about stipulations and contract. He may very well have a separate contracts off track, as a lot of these guys do.
But at the 2022 Italian Grand Prix, he was wearing a Cartier Santos. Now, again, Cartier, big brand, not a sponsor of any of this.
For sure not. Listen, maybe he's not limited. Maybe he's a watch guy, and this is what he likes, and this is what he bought. We don't know. I mean, I can call him real quick.
Yeah, give him a buzz. So our next guy is George Russell, Mercedes' newest team member. George Russell seems to be committed to the sponsorship. I mean, he's been on the track and off the track been seen wearing only IWCs.
Much like Lewis Hamilton.
Almost. Lewis Hamilton has one, wrong turn. I'm trying to use these puns.
You're doing an okay job with it.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Mediocre.
So George Russell was seen at a cafe, I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks ago, and he had a picture of an IWC double chronograph Top Gun.
Doppelchrono.
Huh?
Doppelchrono.
Doppelchrono. Certanium.
Doppel. Doppel.
Doppel.
Which stands for double.
Okay. I'm going to use the American version.
All right, there you go.
He's obviously been seen wearing IWC, pilot chronographs. Like, that's his go-to watch. Like, most of the pictures you see online of him, he's wearing a chronograph. Of course, he's recently been seen wearing the AMG Petronas Formula 1 edition. That's obviously a beautiful watch. You have one yourself. He seems to not be one to veer off that sponsorship.
I'm going to give you a very simple explanation. So, think about... Lewis Hamilton, not arguably the GOAT of F1 at the moment, and Russell. George Russell is a newbie, right? He came on to Mercedes last year. He's proved himself. I think he's got a bright future in Formula 1. I think potentially as Lewis gets older, eventually he could become the #1 seat, quote unquote. But George Russell is still a young kid and a rookie. He comes to an organization. He's been given an opportunity of a lifetime. Moved up from a team that was, I think, dead last to a team that has the potential to be first, a team that finished third, and so on and so forth. Ended up on a podium.
How do you go from Williams to Mercedes? If
you are a talented driver, you will do that.
But wouldn't he be talented at Williams? Wouldn't he have had to win a bunch of...
Well, continue watching
I'm going to
Drive to Survive, and you'll realize that a lot of it is on the car itself. A lot of these drivers are on such a lot. Think about this. In what other sport in the world, name any sport where there's only 20 guys?
Yeah, it's insane.
So if you consider the level that these guys play at, if you ever notice that, when we watch a U.S. Open, Australian Open, any tennis, very, very seldomly do you get somebody from the bottom rankings that comes up to the top. At the end, you usually end up with finals of the best of the best of the best. So now you have a situation where you have only 20 people out of 8 billion people out there that make it to that job. What do you think the gap between them as far as talent is concerned? It's minimal. So obviously a lot of it is on a car, a lot of it is on a team, a lot of it is on a strategy. But again, keep watching the show and you'll get into it. Eventually you'll understand. So here you are, you're a rookie. You've been given an opportunity of a lifetime. You're one of 20 people in the world that made it, and not only did you make it into F1, and then later made it onto one of the most iconic teams on the racetrack. Yeah. You're going to jump and jump as high as they tell you to jump, and you're going to follow every single rule. Yeah. Now, if you want to move on to Lewis Hamilton getting caught off track, what was he wearing?
I'll get to that.
Now you're Lewis Hamilton. You're the GOAT. Who runs the team? Who runs the LA Lakers? Is it the coach or is it LeBron James?
It's LeBron.
Exactly. When you're LeBron James, which is, Lewis Hamilton arguably is the equivalent of that, you tend to want to bend the rules. What are they going to do? They're going to tell Lewis Hamilton, "Oh my God, we're going to dock your pay, or we're going to fire you if you keep wearing this other watch."
Points. Well, I guess not from the sponsor.
No. So again, obviously, I'm sure the contracts that are signed have pretty harsh stipulations and so on and so forth. And let's say if he gets, what can they do? Fine him $10,000? I mean,
nothing.
There's
nothing they can do.
It's Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But a rookie. George Russell's not a rookie anymore, but a guy who's fairly new and fresh is going to follow the rules to the T. And I'll be honest with you, I like those watches. Of course, I'm biased because I'm a Mercedes fan, and therefore anything AMG that they made, I absolutely love. That's why I bought one at retail. That was the only watch I've ever bought myself at retail. I literally was at F1 and I ordered that watch. I put up a screenshot. This is a funny story. I put up a screenshot on my Instagram, and all of a sudden, a day later, I see they're all sold out. I come to the office. I'm like, Adrian, look at this. I bought myself this AMG chrono. I put it on Instagram. The next day, they sold out. I made it sell out. He goes, Roman, I hate to burst your bubble. I'm like, this is other influencer. His name is Lewis Hamilton. He probably had a lot more to do with that than you, which I had to agree.
Tiny bit. On to the next one, and I think this one is my favorite, both as a driver, as a personality, and his watch collection. We have Daniel Ricciardo.
Ricciardo?
No, it's Ricciardo.
It's Ricciardo.
It's Ricky. His actual last name is Ricciardo.
But they pronounce it Ricciardo.
They pronounce it Ricciardo. I mean,
what's just have an English accent? Daniel Ricciardo.
What's his name? The Red Bull team principal is like, I think, is it Ricciardo? Like during one of the interviews, and I'm like, dude, he's been driving for you for a while.
By the way, the biggest mistake he ever made. Oh, wait, you don't know about this?
I don't, so please don't ruin that for me. I'm going to go ahead with the actual spelling of his name. I could be mispronouncing, but the spelling of his name is Ricciardo. But let's go with one, either or. His collection is pretty sick. We could start off with his Patek Philippe collection. So the first one that comes to mind is he has the 5711 Ruby. That is just an amazing watch itself. It's beautiful. It stands out from just being a regular Nautilus, blue dial. This thing is gorgeous. He also wears a couple of different variations of the Grand Complications. Last one he was seen in was a 5271P. Also, diamond bezel. I mean, beautiful fucking watch. I mean, he doesn't have to wear any of this. So he is obviously a former McLaren driver. He does have the Richard Mille McLaren, which people have made a joke, like, now since you're no longer with them, why don't you auction it off? You'll get a couple $1 million for it. Just kind of like as a last, FU.
As an FU?
Yeah.
But that would be an FU to McLaren or an FU to Richard Mille?
Both. I don't know if he wants to FU Richard Mille.
I was about to say.
Because he also has a 6702 on a green strap,
listen,
which is very nice.
The first Richard Mille McLaren that they made, a.k.a. the Tony the Tiger watch, as we like to call it, right? That watch eventually sold for more money than the McLaren itself. The idea is that for somebody that buys a McLaren Senna, I believe is what's the car, you would then have the opportunity to buy that watch along with it.
You'd have the permission to buy
the permission. And oddly enough, all those McLarens ended up on the secondary market with guys like us. But at the time, the market price wasn't quite there yet. But then eventually, when the market price in that watch went up towards $500,000+, you're like, McLaren, which is not particularly a good car, most say. As a car, it's a beautiful car, but they do break quite often. Or have a Richard Mille.
Yeah, I think a lot of people bought the car just to get access to the Richard Mille because that was more valuable.
Whereas I don't think so.
Whereas the car...
I don't think so.
No?
No.
I mean, it was what? It was $1 million car?
I don't remember.
I think it was either a $1 million or $2 million car, and the watch is now, $1 million or $2 million watch.
It's not. It's actually come down in price. They're below... They're trading slightly below $500.
Are we talking about the 5003?
Are you talking about the Tourbillon?
Yes.
Oh, no.
I'm talking about
the Tourbillon is, oh my God.
Correct. That's the one that he's wearing.
Yes.
Now let's get to our final guy, which is Lewis Hamilton. Now, again, typically Lewis Hamilton off the track, on the track, anywhere in the shower, he's wearing an IWC. There was one picture that we found of him wearing a 5740, a Patek Philippe 5740 1G. He was leaving like a club and somebody, paparazzi snapped a picture. and concentrating like on his wrist, you see that's what it is. It's not funny. I don't want to say funny was the wrong word. It's interesting that their choice, of watch outside of what they're responsible for seems to be a theme. They're constantly going to Patek Philippe. Now,
listen, Patek Philippe is the Rolls Royce of all watches, the most prestigious brand in the world, right? And often people say, well, Rolex is number one. Well, number one in what? Recognition, yes. Sales, yes. Production numbers, yes. But when it comes to prestige, especially for someone that has a little bit of money, you're always going to go to a Patek Philippe. Even someone who's not a big watch guy, but somebody who has a high net worth, it's always going. They're going to have their iced out Rolexes. They're going to have some baguette encrusted something or other. But at the end of the day, every single one of them is always going to come back to Patek Philippe because Patek Philippe is the Rolls Royce of all watches. It is the most prestigious brand in the world. And look, do I blame them for going that route? Again, a 5740 trades way over retail price, and he probably got that watch. Look, if Lewis Hamilton came to me, or came to this office, well, first of all, I would be beside myself because I'm his number one fan. And he came over here and simply said, Roman, let's do an episode of Gray Market together. I want to be on it. I would go, Lewis, go down to the safe, pick it any watch you want, and walk out with it, right? Like, think about it, right? Odds are he paid for that watch because, again, Lewis Hamilton's personality, not to say that I know him personally, but for what you hear people talk of him, he's an extremely intelligent guy. He's extremely smart. He's someone that doesn't strike me that would even take a freebie. He's somebody that will strike me as that will walk into a store and somebody would want to give him something. He would actually want to pay for it. Or at least take the money, donate it to a charity or something of that nature, right? But at the end of the day, let's be real here. Any of these guys, think about it, a sport that's followed by gajillions of people around the world, a sport that's, I'd like to label as a rich man's sport. It's not very cheap to go to an F1. F1 events are expensive, right? It's not a football game where you can get a ticket in the nosebleeds. It is expensive to go to F1. It's a very expensive sport. We had a suite at the start and finish line in Miami. We still have it. And the suite fits 25 people, 26 people. And I took a look to my right, because it's an open air suite. And I was just kind of obviously eyeing out the wrists. And I'm thinking I'm going to see a ton of Rolex. I looked at a suite on my right and I saw Richard Mille, Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin. I saw watches where the average ticket price was above $50,000, right? And this just goes to show something. Again, cars, racing, and watches, they do go hand in hand. But Lewis Hamilton, am I surprised he's spotted wearing a Patek Philippe? Look, I won't mention any names. I know another guy that's a driver who's sponsored by a major team and a major watch brand. And I know his collection consists of anything but the stuff, everything outside of what he's sponsored for. Now again,
we come back to this issue, like, where do you wear it? Do you know what I mean? What are you just walking around naked in your house wearing, your Patek Philippe because you're sponsored by Richard Mille? Like,
listen, there's a time limit on all these things, right?
Yeah.
There's, I'm sure when they sign that contract, if it's a type of contract where that's all you're allowed to wear for years, I'm sure it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
Again, what I don't know is this something that trickles down to the team members from the team contract? Or is this an individual?
It's a good question. I looked into it and I could not find any specific sponsorships, directly from the brand to the athlete.
Because I think the athlete is signed by the team, and then whatever sponsorships the team has, that's what the athlete has to follow.
So some of the other drivers, that I looked at to see what, if they were caught, like Lando Norris, can't find a single picture of him wearing anything outside of like what his team is sponsored by, which I believe it was Richard Mille. There's nothing. Like, you scour the internet, there's nothing unless you go before he was.
Aston Martin, you got Gerard Perregaux. And again, it's you're going to in a private setting. In a private setting, I guarantee you a lot of these guys will wear other watches if they're watch people. But also you have to consider this. They may not necessarily be watch guys. Right? Just because they have money doesn't make them a watch person. Some of these guys could care less for a watch. So you really don't know how they are in a personal setting unless you personally know them. So, one of them may choose to put on a Casio or nothing at all.
There was a brand that I saw that seemed like an independent, a very small independent, and on, at least to my, in my specific knowledge, I did not recognize it. It reminded me of a Venti
for Alfa Romeo?
No. So this was like, I saw like, I think Sebastian Ocon? Yeah, Ocon wearing one. Somebody else was wearing it. Like, this was a name I never saw before.
I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah, you might want to.
I'll tell you exactly what it is.
Let me see if I could.
I can tell you exactly. Rebellion timepieces.
There you go. What is Rebellion?
Rebellion timepieces. Okay, so Rebellion has been around for a little bit. They sort of came out around the hype where, alongside with companies that you probably never heard of, like MCT watches, they make complicated watches, etc. And Rebellion came out. They were doing okay for a little bit, then it kind of died down. New money came in, revived them, and they're reviving them with sponsoring the Alfa Romeo team. During, which event was it? Oh, during the Miami event last year, they rented was it in Monaco last year?
How big is this brand?
It's not.
I mean, it has to be pretty big to afford this sort of sponsorship.
So again, you're opening up a watch company, right? And you made, Avi Watch Co., right? Whatever you want to call it, right? And they carry your name. You obviously either have your own money to do so, or you bring in investors to invest into it. And most of that money goes into what? It goes into marketing, right? Because the cost of making these watches is, especially when you're making such a small, maybe 1,000 watches a year, it's not that great. That's not your biggest cost. Your biggest cost is marketing that. If you remember a few years back, we tried a jewelry brand, and we spent about $1.5 million on the actual line, created all the jewelry, the packaging, and everything else. And then we realized, oh shit, for this to be successful, I now got to take $15 million and spend it on marketing, right? With that said, what do? You go out to probably one of the most effective sports for someone that is watching to buy an expensive watch. I think it's more effective than tennis. I think just because it's not as big as tennis, but it's certainly more effective. Because first of all, it's a worldwide sport. Second of all, it goes across a multitude of countries throughout the year. Yeah. And third and foremost, that brand is in your face, literally the whole time. You see IWC. When they're driving, they have an IWC on their glove. You can see that, right? And it's in your face consistently. When you're at a race, Rolex is everywhere. It's plastered all over the track. It's the big clock. It's just like in tennis, right? With that said, and you can flex when you don't sponsor a team or a driver, when you sponsor the whole damn thing.
That's a flex. Like, Richard Mille, you guys stick to the drivers. We'll
just take the whole thing.
Yeah, we'll take the sport.
So here you are. You come out with this brand. I think this is a brand that was revived. It's been around a few years back. I remember when they first came out. And I don't remember where it was last year, but they literally rented a multi-million-dollar yacht where they parked the F1 car in the middle of the yacht.
Oh, that's sick.
Who was doing it? The guy, that influencer, I forget his name. He's always in Monaco. He's always on Instagram doing their stuff for them. But doesn't matter. You hire all the right influencers, all the right marketing companies, and you plaster yourself onto an F1 car. Now, is there a big difference between the winning car versus the losing car when it comes to sponsorship and visibility? Maybe slight, but not as great. You can be on the worst team, and it's going to be just about as effective. Yes, granted, you won't be on the podium, but you see every single car going around the track and you see this from a cockpit, on the drivers, on their suits, on their helmets, and everything else. So that's Rebellion, and they did this with Alfa Romeo last year.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I saw that, and I was like, okay, first of all, it's an interesting looking watch, and second of all, I was like, never heard of the brand before. So I thought it was interesting.
Their initial stuff that they came out with before this looked a lot better. These are a bit too loud, in my opinion. I think
they are a bit loud.
I think most of them are ugly.
Personally, I didn't think they were ugly. I thought they were loud, definitely loud. Reminded me a lot of like a very busy RM, or
wannabe.
Yeah, it was like, actually, a very busy Hublot. What do they call it? The ones that are shaped like the RMs.
It's an O-shaped ones.
Yes.
Spirit of Big Bang.
There you go. The spirit. That's what it reminded me of. All right. That covers our F1 drivers' watches. Thank you very much for joining me. If you like this episode, if you are listening to this or you're watching this, make sure to show us some support, comment, like, subscribe, review the podcast. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and we'll keep doing this for you. Roman, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Abby.
Have a great day.